Ugly.
Five.
Who are the best and who are the worst NFL teams? It's Mike Gill's Fine Five and Ugly Five on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's football station.
All right, five ugly five best, five worst. Who are they? And there's a lot of ugly choices that we can go through here. We'll dish them out for you in just a second. I found that the Fine Five was more difficult this week.
So I basically took a position, Mike, that I'm going to only do the Fine Five and Ugly Five on a week-to-week basis. And I'm going to be very different from my who's in, who's out, and not worry about my last week's picks.
Well, you can't really. I mean, you're based on, both of them are really with the information that you have up to that point. And we know this is such a week-to-week league, right? I mean, everything changes so drastically as you see these teams perform. You formulate different opinions on them from week to week. So, all right, let's get into it. Fine Five, Ugly Five right now. Who do you have? Who's your fifth worst?
I have the Detroit Lions, despite almost coming back and having a chance to win that game versus the 49ers. I think this team still has a lot of limitations. They still have a lot of issues. Just because you have a good quarterback doesn't overcome your other problems. So for right now, they're my number five.
I have them number five as well, the Detroit Lions. They went on the road. They fought hard. They had a shot to pull off a road upset. They played much better than they did in the first game. I don't think in the end they're going to be on this list. I think they're going to get off this list at some point. But right now, they've been one of the five worst teams in the league. Number four, who you got?
I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns. They're still winless. They're still in the conversation for one of the worst teams in the league. But I really hope they get a win so they can get off this list, because I'm really hoping for the best for that franchise. Not just because they're on Hard Knocks, but because I'm just tired of seeing them lose. It's old now. Like it was a fun novelty, let's bash on the Browns item for a little while, but now it's getting ridiculous.
I don't have the Browns on my list. Just another week in a row, no Browns. They're much more competitive than these five teams. Number four on my list is the Giants. Offensive line, a disaster. The way they added the weapons, but they still can't get out of their own way. I think Dallas is very mediocre, and the Giants just could not move the ball on that team. So Giants right now, until you fix that offensive line. And look, quite frankly, the quarterback's in the bottom half of the league. Like it or not, he's in the bottom half of the league, and they're on this list for those couple of reasons. Giants, number four.
My number three team is the Oakland Raiders. They at least have good first halves, but they have horrible second halves. This team can't close. He doesn't know what they're doing in the second half of the game. It's absolutely embarrassing. And, oh, by the way, John Gruden again this week said that he has no pass rush.
I've got Oakland 2. I don't like the Gruden hire. We'll be harping on that all season long. They just don't have a great roster. I mean, who's a guy on this team other than Cooper that you're saying they used to? They had Mack.
You like Marshawn Lynch?
Not at this age. Not anymore.
Jared Cook?
Jared Cook's not bad. He'd probably be a starter on most teams in the league.
What about tackle Donald Penn?
Is that the guy who wanted to fight somebody last year?
Isn't that most offensive lineman?
No, he wanted to fight a fan or something.
Oh, yes, that was him.
All right, I got Oakland number 3.
My number 2 is the Arizona Cardinals. Your offense looks horrible for 2 straight weeks, and your head coach still says Sam Bradford's starting quarterback. Yeah, your team stinks. You're my number 2.
I've got Buffalo number 2. Allen gave them a little bit in that game. The fact that they're using Allen and Arizona's using Bradford, that's why I like Buffalo right now ahead of Arizona. So I got Buffalo 2, Arizona 1. Arizona didn't score last week. I know they played the Rams, who were pretty good, but still, they didn't score. Bradford threw for under 100 yards. I've been a Bradford guy, and I get it. Look, he's bounced all over the place. At this point, it's a lost cause with him. I would have loved to have seen Sam Bradford in the same system for 7, 8 years to have the conversation anymore. I mean, how many different coordinators this poor guy had? And now the health is an issue, and they stink. So I don't necessarily know that Bradford is or isn't the issue. They're just terrible. They got to go to the other kid. Buffalo's already done it. That's why they're 2, because they at least made that decision. Arizona couldn't even get that right.
See, I have the Bills number 1 because I think the biggest reason why they had success in week 2 is because they were at home. I think for some reason, whatever reason, Buffalo is a good home team. I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know if it's because people are so bored out of their minds of it, like Jordan Matthews was. Whatever reason, Buffalo's good at home. Arizona's not good at home or the road. So I can understand you putting Arizona at 1, but for me, I can't get over the fact that the Bills just look so embarrassing at times. So I got them at 1.
All right, Arizona hasn't looked embarrassing at times. They've looked embarrassing the entire time.
No, I said the Bills look embarrassing.
I know, I'm saying Arizona hasn't looked embarrassing from time to time. Just all the time they've been embarrassing. All right, Fine 5. These are the 5 best teams in the league. This one's a little bit more difficult, I thought, than the Ugly 5. So, who's number 5 on your Fine 5 list?
Yeah, this was very difficult. So I decided, I'm actually giving my 5 and 4 together. I'm going to explain why. I made a conscious decision to say I can't keep either one of these teams out, but because they tied, I'm going to put them both in. So at number 5, I had the Packers. And number 4, I had the Vikings. The Packers should have won that game 3 times over. And the Vikings, you got to give them credit for not losing the game in Green Bay. And the Vikings have a real kicker now in Dan Bailey. So I have Packers 5 and Vikings 4.
Interesting. You like Green Bay a lot more than I do. I like them with Rodgers. I don't think the rest of their team's very good, and I'm not sure Rodgers makes it. But even with Rodgers, I don't think they're one of the 5 best teams. That defense just isn't good enough. I got Philly number 5. Look, they had a bad week last week. They've got a lot of injuries, but you're getting Carson Wentz back. So that's a big lift to this team. Their defense is still one of the best in the league. They had a bad game in Tampa, who's looked pretty good. I contemplated putting Tampa in this spot, but I'll go Philly over the rest. Philly's number 5.
And who's your number 4?
New England. They went down on the road, lost to a Jacksonville team that's on this list as well. I still think New England, they went out and got Josh Gordon. That, to me, if that guy can play, that might separate them from the pack big time. And that could be the difference maker. Now, again, we talk about, I know a lot of people don't like the whole home field advantage early in the season. Jacksonville, New England, if they have the same record, where are we going to point back to? Week 2 of the season, right? Jacksonville beats New England in week 2. That game right there might have had big home field advantage. So that's a big, big game there. And if New England has to go to Jacksonville in the playoffs and you have Josh Gordon, that's a heck of a lot different game than the one we saw in week 2. Big time.
Yeah, see, I consciously decided not to put the Eagles or the Patriots in this week because I'm being hyper-reactionary this year. That's why this week my number 3 team is the Kansas City Chiefs. Pat Mahomes, 6 touchdowns. Andy Reid's got something going on with that offense. I still have a lot of faith in that defense for the Chiefs, but the offense is sure impressive to go to now not 1, but 2 straight away games and put up those kind of stats. The Chiefs are my number 3 team in my Fine 5.
I got Chiefs as well. I had them last week in the Fine 5. They moved up to number 3. I like them winning on the road, and now getting they had 2 games on the road. Now they get to come home and play at Arrowhead, a tough place to play. Like the quarterback, like their weapons. Kelsey, Gill, they've got an assortment of guys they can get the ball to, and they got a good defense too. So I like the Kansas City Chiefs. They're number 3 in my Fine 5. Number 2, who do you got?
I got the Los Angeles Rams. Very impressive the first 2 weeks, but they've also played the Raiders and the Cardinals. So I can't give them the 1 spot because I want to see them be a little bit better of a team, but you can't not be impressed with this team, especially that defense. I mean, when you add a team with Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib, with Ndamukong Suh, with Aaron Donald, that's a really good football team.
I give you that. I've got Jacksonville number 2. Their defense is probably the best in the league. They'll get Fournette back. I think the one area where they might struggle down the road, long season, is do they have the weapon trees at wide receiver? They came through last week against New England, but I don't know if Bortles can play like that all season long, and does he have the wide receivers all season long, or did they just have that one big week? We'll see. That's why they're at number 2 for me.
Well, I'm rewarding them for that one big week because they're now my number 1 on my Fine 5. And how about Blake Bortles? That may be the best game I've ever seen that guy play in his life. and he did it against Bill Belichick and the Patriots. So, you know what? For at least 1 week, I'm giving you that one spot. I'm giving you the nod.
I got the Rams, and, you mentioned it. They haven't had the best schedule yet so far. And you know what? Quite frankly, they're not going to play a great schedule with San Francisco, Seattle, and Arizona. They get 6 games there, so they're going to beat up on that division. They should win 6 games out of the mix in that spot. So I think the Rams, though, are the best team. They got weapons all over the place. My God, Gurley's awesome. The receivers, Cooks, they got a big play guy now. Defensively, I mean, Donald and Sue, get the heck out of here trying to block those two guys. The 2 corners, Peters and who's the other guy they got?
Aqib Talib.
Yeah, Talib, that's right. I'm getting older, Josh. Sometimes I forget these guys. Now, you'll find out in about 10 years. Talib and Peters, I mean, they're just excellent on the corners there. So they got the one area that they might be a little light in is the outside pass rush. Who's that end that can hit the corner and come after you? Yeah. That's the one area where I think the Rams, in a playoff game, one-on-one, you game plan for them. That might be where you get them.
Right. They don't have a guy like the Broncos have Von Miller, the Bears have Khalil Mack, the Eagles got 3-4 dudes who can come off the edge, whereas the Rams are very dependent on up the middle.
Yeah, so that might be their spot. So we'll see. Those 2 teams. But think about this. Think about 2 years ago, if we were talking about the Rams and Jacksonville as the number 1 and 2 team in the Fine Five. They were perennial ugly fivers. And here they are 2 years later. 2 years later, number 1 and number 2 in the Fine Five.
Goff and Wentz, 1-2. Now both of those teams are among the best in the NFC.
And Bortles was a drafted
third overall pick.
Top 5, I was going to say. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like him, but here's a guy, top 5 pick in the draft, and he's got his team in the top of the Fine Five.
Got to give him credit.
Absolutely. And by the way, Rams, number 1 pick. Jacksonville, top number 3 pick. Kansas City, Mahomes, first-round pick. They traded to get. New England obviously has a historic great, and Carson Wentz, number 2. That's my Fine Five. All those quarterbacks all drafted pretty high, and Brady's just pretty good. And by the way, on the flip side, though, Arizona's quarterback was the number 1 overall pick. Buffalo's a first-round pick. Oakland, Carr was a second-round pick. Eli was number 1, or however you want to he was drafted 1, got traded away.
Right, he was
and
first.
Detroit was number 1 overall, too.
Yeah.
So doesn't always necessarily mean.
Doesn't always mean you're going to be there.
That's right.